So I want to share a story with you all. About 24 years ago, my parents were beginning their search for their dream home. And the thing is, they weren't looking for their home by location. They were looking for their home by district. They were aware that whatever district that they moved to, they wanted it to provide their daughter with the academic preparation that she would need to pursue any dream that she had. And so when they looked for a district that I was going to grow up in, they wanted that academic excellence to be there. They wanted it to be a district where I would be able to thrive and I would be able to pursue my greatest God-given potential. Both of my parents grew up in single-parent homes, experiencing poverty, experiencing dependency on welfare. And yet, through their hard work, they were able to pursue that upward mobility that we can only get here in America. My mom was able to go back to school and become a nurse. My dad was able to open his own small business. And so watching them work hard to pursue that is what made me feel like that I could pursue anything that I wanted to. In addition to that, they made sure that I was informed about where I came from. They raised me telling me stories about my grandmother and my great-grandmother working as hired help. They raised me telling me about my great-grandfather that served in World War II. And the thing is, they didn't use those hardships faced by those before us in order to persuade me that I was oppressed, that I would be oppressed, or that I was going to be hindered by oppression. They used our history and our hardships to inspire me, to empower me. That's Black history to me. And so we're here today because there are a lot of harmful ideologies that are picking up sensationalism in the news. And I operate a legal practice that deals with issues in employment law and in education law. And so I think that, if I look back as a first-generation law school graduate and I think about where would I be today if I had been raised with these ideas that are presented in anti-racism training and racial sensitivity training and racial awareness training. I think that when we look at those, the issue is that we don't need to be more aware of race. We don't need to be more sensitive to race. We need to have more awareness and more sensitivity for the individual. This marketing push for this anti-racism, racial sensitivity training, and cultural competency, it isn't just rhetoric, it's racism itself. This is a legal liability, and it's a threat to the success of students of all colors. These social theories tend to separate out individuals based on their groups, and then they assign these positive and negative traits to each of these groups. This can create a legal liability for a discriminatory and racially hostile environment. It's my mission as an attorney and an advocate to aid parents, students, and public servants with the information that they need in order to help all children pursue their greatest God-given potential. In ideologies like anti-racism and critical race theory, the goal is to seek out remedying current discrimination with future discrimination, remedying past discrimination with present discrimination. And so today I want to help you avoid that from taking place in your district. I want to help you shift to a student-focused education with my 5 points. So the first thing that I wanted to make clear is that educators and public officials are not parents. They are not parents in the eyes of the law, and it's been made clear that these positions are elected by parents in order to help protect parental rights. I have provided counsel to Christian conservative students that have felt targeted in disciplinary proceedings. I've provided counsel to teachers that have felt like they've been targeted because of their beliefs. I've witnessed the trampling of student and teacher rights to free speech, and I've witnessed the overstepping of student rights to be free of proselytizing and indoctrination. What these incidents often have in common is this mindset that it's the job of a school administration to step in and provide and shape ideology where it feels that the parents have fallen short. But across the country, from the ballot box to school board meetings, we are seeing that parents have responded to government co-parenting with a resounding no. So I want to help your school districts honor that and help you focus on what kids need to know instead of trying to control what worldview that kids have to believe in. Secondly, I want to make clear that student and teacher free speech rights are not equal. We know that students have long held rights to free speech and expression with few limitations. We know that students and teachers do not leave their rights to free speech at the schoolhouse gate. But it's important to recognize that teachers function as agents of the state. Administrators function as agents of the state. And that means that their free speech rights are often going to be limited by the academic goals and the policies of your district that you have set in place. I want to be clear that in opposing anti-racism, in opposing critical race theory, it is not in opposition to teaching history. What we oppose is curriculum that presents skewed perspectives, that twists historical facts, and that argues this ultimate conclusion that racism is a part of the fundamental foundations of America. The legal issues with divisive concepts and with the teaching of any subject is not the presence in the classroom as much as it is the promotion. So if we look at how a teacher could feel compelled to support a political ideology, or a student could be incentivized for selective activism, then we're going to see that the door is open to First Amendment litigation surrounding compelled speech, restrained speech, and viewpoint-based discrimination. If we put this another way, so if you have a teacher that is discussing religion in class or current events in class as related to the approved curriculum, the legal issue comes in with the concept of proselytizing. So that's where the religion or the theory is not merely taught as existing or disclaimed as the personal views of the teacher, but instead it's presented as better or right or necessary. If an administrator says that in their free time they've been reading books by Ibram X. Kendi as a part of understanding current events, that's fine. But an administrator should not promote critical race theory as the correct or best method for confronting racism, since this social theory is just that. It is theoretical. And so proselytizing means going beyond the acknowledgement, the tolerance, or the existence of ideologies, belief systems, religions, lifestyles, etc., to actually promoting, endorsing, and encouraging. Proselytizing happens when you have educators and administrators taking advantage of a captive audience, utilizing that position of authority and the ability to give grades with the goal of creating disciples that believe in the same things that you believe in. The third point I want to make is that diversity is not limited to race. Despite how it looks when we turn on the TV, your school may not have a ton of racial diversity or sexual diversity, and when it does, this form of diversity is not often just black and white. It is race-based or gender-based or when we focus in on just black-white relations or just a race-based program, not only do we leave out a lot of populations of Asian, Latino, Native American, or multi-ethnic backgrounds, but we also tend to forget that there are other forms of diversity besides racial diversity. There is neurodiversity. There's diversity in our physical abilities. There's socioeconomic diversity. There's diversity of national origin. The fourth point that I want to make very clear is that kids are not adults. It is so easy to find ourselves stuck in that adult headspace and trying, to fit the schema of childhood social development into that adult headspace. What we need to keep in mind is that we've got to remember what it was like to be in elementary school, to be in middle school, to be in high school. What was it like to care more about fitting in and belonging somewhere more than fixing the world's problems? If you, as an educated adult, have issues grappling with the problems that are occurring on a national level, if you, as an educated adult, are struggling to process a current event and you're grasping for answers to huge issues and problems that have existed for years, just try to imagine what it's like and how difficult it would be for your students to understand. Educators should be encouraged to exercise restraint. They should be encouraged to ask questions about student interactions and not jump to conclusions. We're way too quick to filter the student interactions that we see through that lens of current events instead of allowing ourselves to step inside another individual's shoes. The last point that I want to make is that replacing one's ignorance with misinformation or social theories is not going to result in educating yourself, and it does not qualify for educating minors. If we take a minute to quickly debunk some of these tactics that may be used to encourage your district to buy into cultural competency, we're going to see that these kinds of programs for racial sensitivity, cultural competency, they actually tend to promote stereotypes and a self-righteousness in those that are undergoing the training. Those that undergo the training tend to believe that they know more about the studied race than they actually do. Even sometimes that they know more about the studied race than members of the studied race. And so by attempting to inform individuals of some blanket race-based generalizations, what these programs actually end up doing is promoting stereotypes and misinformation. We see concepts emerge like interracial and intraracial Gnosticism, where we have this confusing, frustrating, infuriating situation of, you don't really know what you feel or why, but I know you better than you know you. It's this concept that members of a minoritized group have more information about the outsider group that the outsider group doesn't have about itself. And then it results in this circular reasoning like, you are racist, but you don't know it and you don't accept it because you are racist. Imagine pairing this with the judgmental pressure cooker of high school relationships when all any student wants to do is fit in. We get a lot of parents coming to us with concerns about bullying, about students being ostracized, about teachers having the students' grades suffer because there's not an alignment of ideology. When your students tell you what they think or feel, listen to them as individuals and work towards that mutual respect throughout your community. Racism is real. I experienced it as just a handful of Black students in my graduating class. But anti-racist efforts are actually a part of the problem, not the solution. When it comes to fixing racism or sexism or any other ism, critical theory is critically flawed and critically racist. Racial sensitivity training and cultural competency tend to separate individuals into these groups of oppressed and oppressors, and then it promotes pity on the oppressed group and shame on the oppressors. Pity and shame is a crippling place to educate out of. Arm yourself and your district's educators with empathy and understanding for each of your students as individuals, not as members of a disenfranchised race or an intersection of oppressors and the oppressed. Empower your students as individuals with inherent value to your community. In doing so, you're going to find that you're able to avoid litigation on First Amendment issues. You're going to find that you're able to help your teachers steer clear of compelled speech or restrained speech, of feeling like that they have to promote a certain ideology that they don't agree with. You're going to find that your students' rights will not be trampled because they're required to recite or agree with or espouse a certain set of ideologies in order to be in alignment with the school or with the teacher. Additionally, in avoiding these ideologies, you're going to avoid creating a discriminatory and racially hostile environment. You're going to avoid discrimination based on viewpoint. When we're looking at that, federal and state civil rights that can be brought in to bring those private rights of action involving a teacher or a student, and you're opening your district up to litigation, it's limiting your resources that you could be using for educating your students as individuals. So we trust that this has been helpful to arming yourself and your district with that empathy and understanding, and making sure that those individuals know that they matter as individuals without their race or their gender being the basis of their value to your community. My name is Rachel Setak. I am a board member for the National School Board Leadership Council, and together we can all help students in your district pursue their greatest God-given potential.